The lonely outcasts, a rain fell softly over the alien market, turning the stone roads into dark mirrors that reflected broken lights from flickering neon signs. People hurried past with their heads down, holding cloaks and bags close to their bodies, the smell of fruit, wet dirt, and smoke mixed in the air. In the middle of this busy but uncaring world sat a small figure, a mini alien girl. Her skin was pale blue with faint glowing lines across her arms. Her clothes were torn, nothing more than old pieces of fabric tied together. Her hair was long, tangled, and wet from the rain. She hugged her knees close to her chest, hiding her face. She looked fragile, weak, and forgotten around her. People walked by without a glance, as if she did not exist. She remembered the words of her own kind, harsh and cruel. They had called her useless because she was too small, too weak. They laughed when she tried to carry water or food. They pushed her away when she asked for warmth, and one day, when the tribe moved on, they simply left her behind. No one turned back, no one cared. Now she lived like a shadow, taking scraps from trash piles, drinking rainwater, hiding when traders or guards came close. She had learned one thing very well: never trust anyone. Because in her short life, trust had always turned to pain. That night, the market was full of noise. Merchants shouted about their goods. Soldiers in black armor walked through the street. Keeping order, the girl shivered, pulling herself deeper into the shadows of a wall. She had not eaten for 2 days. Her stomach hurt, but she dared not move. If she tried to steal, she would be beaten again. A group of humans passed by. Laughing loudly, they pointed at her, whispering about how strange and ugly she looked. One of them even tossed a piece of fruit toward her, but not with kindness. It was thrown like trash, hitting her arm before rolling into the mud. The men laughed and walked away. She stared at the fruit for a long moment, but she did not reach for it. She had learned that sometimes food was a trap. Her heart was heavy. Her eyes burned with silent tears. She wished, just once, someone would hold her, someone would tell her she was not worthless. But she knew better than to dream dreams were dangerous for someone like her. Then, through the crowd, she noticed someone different. A tall human soldier stood not far away. His armor was scratched, his eyes tired but sharp. He carried himself like someone who had seen too many battles. His gaze moved across the market until it stopped on her. For a moment, their eyes met. She froze. Her body shaking, the soldier did not look away. He did not laugh, he did not call her names. Instead, he studied her, as if he was trying to understand why such a small creature sat alone in the rain. She quickly lowered her head. Hugging her knees tighter, her heart pounded. She thought he would move on like all the others, but he didn't. His heavy boots echoed as he stepped closer. The girl's breath caught. Fear rushed through her. Was he going to hurt her, take her, or hand her to the traders? She wanted to run, but her legs felt too weak. The soldier stopped just a step away. He knelt down slowly so his eyes were level with hers. His voice was low but clear. "You're cold," he said. She did not answer. She only looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. From his pouch, he pulled out a small piece of bread. He placed it on the ground in front of her. He did not push it into her hands. He did not force her. He simply set it there and waited. The girl's lips trembled. She could not believe it. No one had ever given her food without wanting something back. Her instincts told her it was a trick, yet her hunger screamed louder. Slowly, she reached out. Her thin fingers shaking, she touched the bread, pulled it to her chest, and took a small bite. Tears filled her eyes as the taste filled her mouth. It was rough and simple bread, but to her, it felt like the sweetest gift in the universe. The soldier watched her eat. He did not move. His expression softened, but his eyes stayed serious. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. The girl shook her head. She had no name anymore. Her people had taken it from her when they left her. He sighed, looking at her as if he carried a weight in his own heart. Then he said, "All right. Little one, you don't need to answer now." He stood back up, towering above her. But his presence was not frightening anymore. It felt strong, like a shield. The girl's chest tightened. For the first time, someone had not walked away. For the first time, someone had seen her as more than trash. She hugged the bread close. Watching him, her thoughts swirled with fear and hope. Was this man different, or would he also leave when morning came, as the rain continued to fall, and the market lights flickered in the night? The lonely outcast felt something she had not felt in years, a tiny spark of warmth in her heart. A spark that whispered maybe, just maybe, she was not as alone as she thought. Asterisk. The harsh world, the morning sun rose weakly over the marketplace, but its light did little to warm the streets. The air was filled with the cries of sellers, the sound of carts rolling, and the laughter of children who had families to protect. Them, in the corner of this noisy world, the mini alien girl sat quietly, still clutching the piece of bread the human soldier had given her the night before. She had eaten slowly, afraid it might be the last food she would see for days. Her stomach still ached from hunger. Her body felt weak. Her clothes clung to her wet skin. Yet in her heart, something new lingered. The memory of that soldier kneeling, offering her food without cruelty. She whispered to herself in disbelief. Could a human really be kind? But the market was not a safe place for hope. Around her, whispers followed. Some merchants sneered, pointing at her with disgust. "Look at the tiny alien." Alay said, "She's nothing, smaller than a child, worthless." Their laughter stung, just as sharp as the words her own kind had once used. A group of alien traders passed by, their eyes sharp and greedy. They had seen her before. They knew small ones like her could be sold. They walked closer, their heavy boots splashing mud at her feet. One of them crouched low, his voice like poison. "No one wants you, little one, but I can take you. We can find a use for you." His hand reached out. She flinched back, clutching the bread tighter. Before they could grab her, a shadow fell across them. The human soldier stood there, his face calm but his eyes burning with warning. He said nothing at first, only placing his hand on the weapon at his side. The traders froze. They looked at the scar on his cheek, the way he stood like someone who had fought and survived. Slowly, they backed away, hissing curses as they disappeared. Into the crowd, the girl looked up at him, her eyes wide. He had protected her again. She did not understand. She whispered in a shaky voice, "Why? Why help me?" Her words were almost lost in the noise of the market. He crouched down again, his armor creaking softly, because no one else will. He said, his voice was steady, but there was something heavy in it, as if he knew what it was like to be abandoned. The girl felt her chest tighten. Her people had never spoken words like that to her, not once. He reached into his pack and pulled out another small piece of food, handing it to her. This time she took it without as much fear, though. Her hands still trembled. She whispered, They will come back." Her voice shook. She knew the traders would not forget. The soldier nodded. "I know," he replied, "but you won't face them alone." The girl's heart raced. Was this man really saying he would stay? For someone? As small, as forgotten, as her suspense filled her chest. Because she could not believe it fully. She had been betrayed too many times. As the day moved on, she tried to follow him. Keeping a little distance, people stared, whispering. Some mocked the soldier for letting a weak alien trail behind him. One man laughed, a warrior with a pet. How noble! The soldier ignored them, walking forward as if their voices did not matter. The girl noticed how others looked at her differently now. With him near, no one dared throw things. No one dared call her names too loudly. It felt strange to walk and not be beaten. She touched her chest, feeling a warmth she had never known. But safety in the market never lasted long. By evening, when the lamps began to glow and shadows grew long, the same group of traders returned. This time, they were not alone. They had brought others, stronger and armed. Their leader smirked. "You think one human can protect a runt forever? Give her to us. She belongs in chains." The girl froze, terror rushing through her. Her hands shook so badly she dropped the bread she had been holding. She whispered, "Leave me, please. It is me they want, not you." Her voice cracked with desperation. She could not stand the thought of him getting hurt because of her. But the soldier stepped in front of her, his stance firm. "She belongs to no one," he said in a voice that cut through the market noise. The crowd grew silent, watching the confrontation. The traders laughed, circling. The leader hissed, "Then you fight us all." The girl's breath quickened. She pulled at his arm, whispering, "Run, please, leave me." But he did not move. His eyes stayed locked on the enemies. His hand tightened around his weapon. The tension in the air grew heavy. The people of the market leaned in, waiting to see what would happen. Some hoped to see the soldier fall. Others whispered in shock that a human would fight for an alien child. The girl's heart pounded. She could feel the danger pressing in from every side. Yet when she looked up at him, standing like an unshaken wall, a new thought flickered in her mind. Maybe for the first time in her life, someone would not abandon her. The harsh world had always taught her she was alone. But this moment, with the soldier refusing to leave her, felt like a promise that things might finally change. A human's kindness. The night air was heavy after the clash in the marketplace. The traders had been forced back, though their angry eyes promised they would return. The crowd slowly melted away, whispering about the strange sight they had witnessed. A human soldier standing firm to protect a worthless mini-alien girl. The girl trembled as she stood in the shadow of the soldier, her small body shaking with fear and confusion. He glanced down at her, his face still calm, but his jaw tight. "Come with me," he said quietly. His voice carried no demand, no threat, just a steady strength. She hesitated, staring at his outstretched hand. Every lesson her harsh life had taught her screamed at her not to trust. Yet her heart beat with a strange rhythm, louder than her fear. Slowly, she placed her tiny hand into his. They walked together through the winding streets, his heavy boots making solid sounds on the wet stone. Her steps were light, almost silent. She kept glancing up at him, her wide glowing eyes filled with questions, but she did not speak. She feared that asking why might break the fragile kindness he was showing. At the edge of the market, he led her into a small shelter built from old metal and stone. Inside, there was a fire pit glowing faintly. A rough blanket lay folded in the corner. The place was simple, but compared to the cold streets, it felt like a palace. The girl's eyes widened as warmth touched her skin. "Sit," he said gently. She obeyed, sitting near the fire. The glow lit her face, showing how young she really was. He removed a pack from his side and took out dried meat and another piece of bread. He offered it to her. She blinked at the food, her hands trembling as she reached out. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. Watching her, her lips quivered. "Why?" she whispered. Her voice cracked like it had not been used for days. "Why give me food? Why stop them?" He studied her for a long moment before answering. His eyes softened, but his voice carried weight. "Because you deserve better." The words hit her harder than the hunger ever had. Her chest ached. Her people had told her she was nothing. Humans in the streets had mocked her. Traders had seen her only as a prize to sell. But this man, this soldier, spoke as if she was worth something. She lowered her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. She tried to hide them. But he noticed he did not mock her for crying. He simply placed the blanket around her shoulders. Careful not to frighten her, she flinched at first, but then allowed it. The warmth wrapped around her thin frame. She pulled it close, as if holding on to hope itself. For a long time, she ate in silence, each bite tasting like a miracle. The soldier sat across from her, sharpening a small blade. His movements were calm, practiced. He looked like someone who had lived through endless battles. Yet here he was, protecting a child not his own. When she finished eating, she whispered again, "They will not stop. They will come again." Her eyes looked down, filled with fear. He nodded slowly. "Yes," he said, "but they'll find me in their way every time." She shook her head, her tiny hands clutching the blanket. "You? You will get hurt because of me." He leaned closer, his gaze steady. "Listen, little one. I've been hurt before. I've fought wars that broke stronger men, but leaving you to them thought would hurt more than any wound." Her heart thudded. She could not understand it fully, but she felt it. This man spoke like he meant every word. His kindness was not a trick, not a lie. It was real. Her tears returned, but this time they were different, softer. She whispered, "I don't even have a name anymore." The soldier paused, staring at her with quiet sorrow. Then he spoke gently. "Then we'll find you one. Until then, I'll just call you Little Star, because even in the dark, you shine." Her breath caught. Her people had stripped her of everything. But this human had just given her something new, a name, a reason to feel alive. She clutched the blanket tighter, whispering the word to herself, "Little Star." The night grew deeper, the fire burning lower, but in the small shelter, warmth filled the air for the first time in her life. She was not shivering from cold or fear. She lay down slowly, the blanket covering her. Her eyes grew heavy, but before sleep took her, she whispered into the silence, "Please, don't leave me." The soldier, still sitting nearby, kept watch with his weapon ready. His eyes stayed sharp, scanning the shadows outside. He answered softly, "I won't." And as she drifted into sleep, she believed him a human's kindness had given her more than food or warmth. It had given her something far greater, a reason to hope again. The bond begins. The morning sun rose slowly, golden light slipping through cracks in the metal shelter walls. The little alien girl opened her eyes, blinking softly as warmth touched her skin. For the first time in years, she had slept without fear, without pain, and without the cold gnawing at her bones. She sat up slowly, still wrapped in the rough but warm blanket the soldier had given her. She looked around. Her eyes landed on the soldier. He was already awake, sitting near the fire, checking his gear, sharpening a blade, and sipping something warm from a silver cup. He looked tired but calm. His face was rough with stubble, and a long scar ran down his cheek. But his eyes held no cruelty, only focus and quiet strength. When he noticed her awake, he nodded once. "Morning, Little Star," he said. The girl blinked. Surprised, he remembered the name he gave her last night. Something about hearing it again made her chest tighten. It was like a small piece of light had been placed inside her heart. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, setting his cup down. She nodded slowly, her voice soft. "Yes." He passed her a small pouch of water and another piece of dried food. She took it with both hands, whispering a thank you. He didn't ask questions. He didn't force her to talk. He simply sat nearby, giving her space, but staying close. After they ate, he stood and picked up his pack. "We can't stay here long," he said. "Those traitors won't give up easily. It's better we keep moving." She stood too, clutching the blanket like a shield. Her tiny legs were weak, but she nodded. She didn't want to slow him down, not after he had done so much. She followed him out of the shelter, back into the noisy, unfriendly world. The market had changed. People still stared. Some even whispered behind their hands, but no one threw things at her. No one dared speak too loudly. Not with the soldier walking beside her. They walked side by side through the streets. He didn't hold her hand, but he kept her close, always checking that she was beside him. As they passed by a food stand, a vendor sneered and muttered, "Why is a soldier dragging around a piece of alien trash?" The girl flinched, her head lowered, but before she could slip away, the soldier turned sharply. "Say that again?" His voice was calm, but carried a quiet warning. The vendor froze, swallowed hard, and said nothing more. The girl looked up at the soldier, her eyes wide with shock. "You didn't have to," she whispered. He looked at her, his face serious. "You don't deserve to be treated like that," he replied. "You've done nothing wrong." Her throat tightened. She didn't know how to respond. All her life, being insulted had been normal. Being defended, that was something new. They found a quiet place near the edge of the district. An old bench under a tall tree. He sat down. Placing his bag beside him, she climbed up next to him. Sitting carefully, still holding her blanket, "Where were you going before you found me?" she asked after a long silence. Her voice was barely above a whisper. He looked out at the sky. "Nowhere," he said. "After the last battle, I was just walking, trying to find something worth fighting for again." She stared at him, her tiny voice shaking. "And? Did you find it?" He turned to her slowly, looking into her glowing eyes. "Maybe I did," he said. She looked away quickly. Her cheeks warmed. She didn't know what to say. But something changed inside her in that moment, as the day passed. They kept walking. The girl began to ask small questions, and he answered them. She learned that his name was Marcus, that he had once fought in a great war far from here, that he had lost friends, and that sometimes he didn't sleep well because of the things he'd seen. In return, she shared little things too, that she loved the stars. Even though she'd never flown to space, that she used to sing when she was alone. That her tribe had called her useless before leaving her behind. Marcus didn't laugh at her stories. He didn't look down at her. He just listened. Really? Listened by the time night came again. They had reached a small hill just outside the city. They built a tiny fire and sat under the stars. "Are you still scared?" he asked, poking the fire gently. She thought for a long time before answering. "A little," she said, "but not when you're here." He smiled for the first time. "Just a little, but it was real." "Then I'll stay," he said, "as long as you want me to." She curled up beside him, the blanket over her shoulders, the fire warm against her face. For the first time in her life, she felt safe near someone, not because he was strong. Not because he fought for her, but because he stayed. Danger returns. The stars above were quiet, but the wind that swept across the hill carried a warning. Marcus sat by the fire, sharpening a blade in silence. The mini alien girl, now wrapped safely in her blanket, rested beside him, her head leaning against his arm. Her breathing was calm, but her fingers curled tightly, as if even in sleep she feared being pulled away. He hadn't told her, but he had seen them earlier, the traitors. Shadowing them from a distance, their angry eyes had not forgotten the shame of being stopped. Marcus knew their kind. They wouldn't stop until they had what they wanted. As the fire dimmed, Marcus stood and scanned the area one more time. He placed a few more sticks on the flame, just enough to keep the girl warm, but not enough to give away their position to Isili. He didn't want to scare her, but he couldn't take chances. In her sleep, she murmured something, a word in her native tongue, one he didn't understand. But the tone was soft, peaceful. He looked down at her with quiet sadness. She deserved this peace. She deserved more than he could give, but he had made a silent promise to protect her, and he meant to keep it. Suddenly, a sound broke the quiet. A snap of a branch. Marcus's head turned sharply. His hand went to his weapon, eyes narrow, breath steady. He rose to his feet slowly, his body tense like a coiled spring. From the darkness, 3 figures stepped into view. One of them was the leader of the traders, tall, scarred, and wearing a cruel grin. "Well, well," the leader said, his voice low and smug. "You thought you could run forever, soldier Marcus. Didn't flinch. You followed us," he said. Not surprised, the trader laughed. "You took something that doesn't belong to you," he growled. "That runt's worth good money." Behind the leader, 2 more thugs circled around, trying to flank Marcus. "You'll leave now," Marcus said coldly, "while you still have the legs to walk." The trader's smile faded. "You can't protect her forever. She's not one of you." "No," Marcus said. Stepping in front of the sleeping girl, "She's better." The moment turned sharp. Like glass about to shatter. Suddenly, the girl stirred, her eyes blinking open. She saw Marcus standing tall, saw the traders with their weapons drawn, and her heart sank. "No," she gasped, her voice small. "Run, Marcus, please." He didn't move. "Stay behind me," he said without looking back. The leader raised his hand, and the attack began. One thug charged from the left, the other from the right. Marcus moved fast, blocking one strike and countering with a heavy punch. The other attacker swung a club, but Marcus ducked low and drove his shoulder into the man's chest. Knocking him to the ground, the girl cried out, but she didn't run. Her legs wouldn't move. Her fear froze her like ice. The leader rushed toward her, thinking Marcus was distracted. But the soldier turned just in time, tackling the trader with full force. They rolled across the dirt, fists and blades clashing. The girl wanted to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. She saw blood on Marcus's arm, saw the strain on his face. And still he fought, not for himself, but for her. The 2 thugs recovered and came again. This time, one grabbed the girl's arm, trying to pull her away. She struggled, kicked, bit his hand. "Let me go," she cried. Marcus saw it, rage flooding his eyes with a roar. He tore free from the leader and charged. Slamming into the thug, he grabbed the girl and pulled her close. Shielding her with his body, the traders backed off for a moment, panting, bruised, but not finished. "You're insane," the leader spat. "All this for a piece of alien garbage." Marcus looked at him with fire in his eyes. "She's not garbage," he growled. "She's a child. And I'd rather die than let you touch her again." Something shifted in the air. The traders had come for an easy win. They hadn't expected resistance like this. They hadn't expected the bond between a soldier and a forgotten girl. The leader stared for a long moment, then wiped blood from his mouth. "This isn't over," he hissed. "You'll wish you left her behind." He turned and signaled the others to retreat into the shadows. Silence returned, but it was heavy. Marcus turned to the girl, kneeling beside her. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She shook her head, tears falling from her glowing eyes. You didn't leave." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I never will," he said. She broke into sobs and threw her arms around him. Her body shook with emotion. Marcus held her tightly, whispering, "You're safe now, little star," but deep inside, he knew this wasn't the end. He had made enemies, and they wouldn't forget. Still, in that moment, with the girl clinging to him and the fire crackling softly, he also knew something else. He wasn't just protecting her anymore. He was fighting for something he believed in, and for the first time in a long time, Marcus felt alive again. The stand the wind blew harder that night, sweeping across the hill like a silent warning. The fire had burned down to glowing embers, casting long shadows that danced over the rocky ground. Marcus didn't sleep. His back rested against a broken log, his weapon held tightly in his hands. Every muscle in his body remained alert. Even though his eyes looked tired, the girl slept in the blanket beside him, her breathing soft and slow. She clutched the edge of the cloth like a lifeline, trusting that Marcus would keep her safe again. But Marcus knew the traitors wouldn't back down forever. They were the type who would come back harder, stronger, and with more numbers he had. Seen it before, the kind of men who didn't forgive a fight. Especially not when their pride and money were on the line. As the first light of dawn touched the clouds, Marcus stood and quietly packed their few things. The girl woke slowly, blinking. Up at him. "Is it time to move?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "Yes, we need to keep going." Just for a little while, she stood up quickly. Her small hands still clutching the blanket. She didn't ask questions, she didn't complain. Her trust in him had grown, and it showed in the way she stayed close to his side. They made their way down the hill and into a canyon of stone and quiet trees. It was peaceful for now, but Marcus's instincts screamed danger. He felt it in the stillness, in the way even the birds had stopped singing. And then it happened. A loud sound cracked through the air. A flare lit the sky, burning red as blood. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "They found us," he said, "from the cliffs." Above, figures appeared, traitors, mercenaries, and hired thugs. Dropping down with ropes and weapons, surrounding them from every side, the girl froze, panic in her eyes. Marcus stepped in front of her without thinking. His blade drawn, his body like a shield, the leader of the traitors stepped forward again, now wearing armor and a smug smile. "This ends now," he growled. "No more running. Give her to us, and we'll let you walk away." Marcus didn't answer. Another man stepped closer. "She's just a tiny alien. What is she to you?" Marcus looked down at the girl behind him. Then he turned his gaze back to the men. "She's the only innocent thing I've seen in years," he said, his voice hard and full of fire. "And I won't let you touch her." The leader spat. "Then you'll die with her." The attack came fast. They rushed from both sides, blades swinging. Marcus fought like a storm, every movement sharp, practiced, deadly. He blocked a strike, knocked one enemy back with a kick, spun to avoid a blade, then countered with brutal force. The girl crouched behind a rock, watching with wide eyes. She wanted to run, but her feet wouldn't move. She couldn't leave him, not now. Then one of the mercenaries broke past Marcus and ran toward her. Knife in hand, she screamed, backing away. Her foot slipped on a rock, and she fell hard. The man raised his blade. But before it came down, Marcus tackled him from the side, knocking him into the dirt. Blood dripped from Marcus's arm now, a deep cut running across his bicep. But he didn't stop. He stood over the girl, roaring at the enemies like a wild animal. The enemies hesitated. Marcus looked broken, bleeding, but his eyes still burned with defiance. Then something strange happened. The girl stood, her small hands shaking. Her markings began to glow brighter, brighter than ever before. Her eyes shimmered with light. The attackers paused, confused. The girl stepped forward. Placing her tiny body beside Marcus, she held her arms out wide, as if daring anyone to come closer. "I'm not trash," she said loudly, her voice clear. "I'm not weak." The leader of the traitors growled. "Move. Little rat." "No," she said, standing firm. "You will not hurt him." The glow from her skin pulsed like energy. Something ancient, something powerful stirred inside her. Marcus looked at her with surprise, and then pride. The attackers backed off slightly. Unnerved by the light, Marcus raised his blade once more. "You had your chance," he said. With a final shout, he charged. The girl beside him didn't fight, but she stood her ground. Her light made the enemies flinch, shield their eyes. Together, they turned the tide. Marcus's blade was fast and brutal, and the fear caused by the glowing girls spread among the attackers like fire. One by one, the mercenaries fled, Their leader cursed them, but even he knew when a battle was lost. He gave Marcus one last glare before turning and disappearing into the trees. Silence returned. Marcus dropped to one knee. Breathing hard, blood dripping from his wounds, the girl ran to him, her small hands touching his face. "You're hurt," she cried. He smiled weakly. "I've had worse," he whispered. "You?" "You were amazing." She shook her head. "I didn't do anything." "Yes, you did," he said. "You stood. That's all it takes sometimes." She helped him sit down, wrapping his arm with a piece of cloth from her blanket as the sun rose. Higher, Marcus leaned back against a rock, the girl sitting close beside him. They had survived, not because he was the strongest or she was the brightest, but because together they had made a stand. The embrace the forest was quiet now. Only the soft wind moved through the trees, and the sound of birds slowly returned to the sky. Marcus sat beneath a wide stone ledge, his back resting against it. Blood drying on his wounded arm, his breaths came slower now, steadier. The danger had passed. But the pain still throbbed beneath his skin. Beside him, the mini alien girl sat close, her small hands pressing cloth gently over his wound, her glowing eyes filled with worry, but also strength. A strength she hadn't known she had just days ago. "You shouldn't have fought for me," she whispered, voice shaking. "You're hurt because of me." Marcus gave a small smile, his face tired but soft. "I'd do it again," he said, 100 times over. She didn't know how to respond. So many people had pushed her away, told her she was worthless, too small, too weak, but this man had risked everything just to protect her, again and again. He had stood in front of her like a shield. "You didn't run," she said quietly. "Never planned to," he replied. Then winced a little. "Though next time, I'd prefer a fight with fewer knives." She smiled for the first time in days. It was small and unsure, but it was real. Marcus looked up at the sky through the trees. "We'll need to keep moving," he said after a pause. "They might not come back right away, but they'll send others eventually." The girl looked down, her voice low. "You can leave me somewhere safe. I'll hide again." He turned to her, surprised. "Is that what you want?" She shook her head slowly. "No," she whispered, "but it's easier." "You don't have to carry me," Marcus leaned forward, wincing through the pain. He reached out and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Listen, little star," he said. "Carrying you isn't a burden. You're not a weight, you're a reason." Her lips parted, eyes wide. "A reason for what?" "To keep going." He answered, "To believe that not everything in this world is broken." She looked down, her cheeks warming, her heart beat fast in her chest, not from fear, but from something else. After a quiet moment, she whispered, "Can I stay with you?" He nodded, "As long as you want." They rested there, under the sun for a while longer. Marcus closed his eyes, trusting her now to keep watch. The girl sat beside him, silent but alert. Her hands still held the blood-stained cloth from his wound. When Marcus finally stood again, he moved slower. But his eyes were full of calm. The girl helped him pack their few belongings. She didn't lag behind anymore. She walked beside him, proud as they reached the edge of the forest. A small group of villagers appeared ahead. Humans and aliens together, curious eyes watching the pair approach. Some stepped back when they saw the blood. Others murmured about the glowing alien girl beside a human warrior. One of the villagers, an older woman with kind eyes, stepped forward. "Do you need shelter?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "Just for a night." He said, "For her." The woman smiled at the girl. "You're safe here, child," she said gently. The girl looked at Marcus, unsure. He gave her a small nod, and they followed the villagers to a quiet cabin near the edge of the trees. Inside, the warmth of a real fire filled the room. There was a bed, clean clothes, and even food on the table. The girl looked around in awe. It had been so long since. She saw a place like this. She turned to Marcus. "Is this really okay?" she asked. "They won't chase us here." He sat on the edge of the bed, resting his hands on his knees. "Maybe not forever," he said, "but for tonight. You'll sleep in peace." She walked over to him and stood there for a moment. Then, without saying a word, she climbed into his arms. Marcus blinked in surprise. His arms slowly wrapped around her small frame, and she held on to him tightly. Her forehead rested against his chest, and for the first time in her life, she felt what it meant to be held. Not as a burden, not as a stray, but as someone precious. "Thank you," she whispered. Tears running down her cheeks, for everything. He said nothing, just held her closer. The fire crackled beside them. The stars outside began to shine. But inside the cabin, the only thing that mattered was the quiet. Steady heartbeat of two souls who had found each other. And in that embrace, the girl who had once been cast aside by her own kind. And the man who had once walked alone with nothing. Left to fight for, found something new, not just survival, but family.